Corral looking to parry those shots.
Oh my!
Caught him with a spinning back kick. He's hurt.
He hurt him big time.
He's
trying to finish.
bad.
It is all over. Henry Corral remains the UFC interim bantamweight champion.
Are you ready to witness the most heart-stopping, jaw-dropping knockouts in UFC history? Buckle up, because we're about to take you on a wild ride through some of the most unforgettable moments in the octagon. From flying knees to lightning-fast punches, get ready to see what it takes to be a UFC knockout artist. Now let's kick off our list with an unforgettable moment from UFC Fight Night in 2020, Joaquin Buckley's stunning knockout of Impa Kasanganay. The world of mixed martial arts has given us some of the most jaw-dropping knockouts in combat sports history, and one of the most recent ones that left everyone in awe was Joaquin Buckley's spinning back kick against Impa Kasanganay at UFC Fight Night in 2020.
They are so even on total strikes at the moment.
In the second round, Kasanganay caught Buckley's leg and took him down to the ground. But as soon as Buckley got back up, he unleashed a spinning back kick that landed flush on Kasanganay's jaw, sending him crashing to the canvas. It was a moment of pure brilliance and athleticism, and the knockout was one for the ages. The video of the knockout went viral on social media, and many people hailed it as one of the greatest knockouts in MMA history. Buckley became an overnight sensation, and his spinning back kick is now considered one of the most iconic moves in the sport. Jorge Masvidal made UFC history at UFC 239 with his flying knee knockout of Ben Askren, which now holds the record for the fastest knockout in the organization's history.
The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see!
The entire fight lasted only 5 seconds, with Masvidal launching himself at Askren right from the opening bell. Masvidal's execution of the flying knee strike was impressive, demonstrating his incredible athleticism and timing. Askren, who was undefeated in the organization before the fight, suffered a devastating loss that left him to pick up the pieces. Despite his confident talk before the fight, the perfectly timed knee strike proved to be his undoing in one of the UFC's most shocking knockouts. Now, let's switch gears to another crazy knockout moment from the UFC. This one involves Edson Barbosa and Terry Etim at UFC 142. Edson Barbosa and Terry Etim were going at it in the octagon, exchanging kicks and punches left and right. But then, out of nowhere, Barbosa throws a spinning back kick that lands flush on Etim's chin, sending him crashing to the mat in a heap.
Dude, you want to take a chance and risk getting knocked out? Oh my God! Wow! Wow!
It was like something out of a movie, man. The way Etim fell was so brutal, it was hard to watch. Barbosa's technique was flawless though. He timed that kick perfectly and landed it with such force that Etim never stood a chance. It's one of those insane knockouts that you'll never forget, no matter how many fights you watch. And speaking of insane UFC knockouts, we can't forget Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort at UFC 126. Silva was already the UFC middleweight champion at the time, and Belfort was a top contender, so this fight had high stakes. But Silva wasted no time, catching Belfort with a front kick to the face just a few minutes into the first round.
We said second to none. Oh! He front kicked him in the face! Absolutely right! Trying to finish it!
Belfort crumpled to the ground, and Silva followed up with a few punches before the ref stepped in to stop the fight. It was a stunning finish that earned Silva the Knockout of the Night award. That front kick is now known as the Spider Kick and is one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. Now let's talk about another epic UFC knockout that went down at UFC 100, Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. These two had a bit of a rivalry going into the fight, so there was already some bad blood between them. But Henderson took things to the next level with a monster right-hand punch that landed right on Bisping's jaw in the second round.
That's it! He's down! And it is all over!
Bisping went down like a sack of potatoes, and Henderson followed up with a few extra punches for good measure. The ref stepped in to stop the fight, and Henderson was awarded the knockout of the night. Brutal finish that had fans on their feet, cheering and applauding the sheer power and precision of Henderson's punch, and it will forever be remembered as one of the legendary knockouts. And speaking of legendary knockouts, let's talk about Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem at UFC 218. This was one of those moments where you could feel the tension building in the arena, and when Ngannou landed that punch, it was like time slowed down for a second. You could see the power behind that uppercut, and when it connected with Overeem's chin, it was game over.
Try to get a matchup with Ngannou! Down goes the Reem! Francis Ngannou has arrived!
But what's even more impressive is how that one moment changed Ngannou's career. He went from being a rising star to a household name practically overnight, and from there, he went on to become the heavyweight champ and one of the most dominant fighters in the UFC. It just goes to show you how one knockout can change everything in this sport. Speaking of knockouts that change everything, another recent example is Marlon Moraes' brutal knockout of Aljamain Sterling in 2017. Another MMA knockout that had fans talking for weeks was the brutal one that Marlon Moraes landed on Aljamain Sterling in 2017. It was a back-and-forth battle until the knockout blow came in the first round, leaving Sterling unconscious and crumpled on the canvas. It was a highly anticipated matchup, with both fighters being top contenders in the bantamweight division. But the fight didn't go Sterling's way, and in the first round, Moraes caught him with a brutal knee to the head, knocking him out cold. The knockout was so brutal that it earned Moraes a Performance of the Night bonus and left fans stunned. It also proved that in MMA, anything can happen at any moment. 1 minute you can be on top, and the next you can be out cold. Next up, let's talk about Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo from UFC 194. The McGregor vs. Aldo fight was an absolute circus. The trash talking leading up to it was insane.
This guy is a dead man walking. That's who this guy is.
Closer, let's go closer. I want to smell us pussy.
Eu sou o rei. Eu cheguei aqui e trouxe o sol, só chove nessa cidade. Cheguei aqui e já trouxe o sol pra você pelo menos sorrir. Você estar aqui hoje. Eu sou o campeão.
Everyone wanted to see these two settle their beef in the octagon. Aldo was a legend. He hadn't lost in almost 10 years, and McGregor was the hotshot newcomer tearing through the featherweight division. But then, when the fight finally happened, it was over in a flash.
Smiling. Oh no! He slapped him!
Conor McGregor is the new UFC featherweight champion of the world!
McGregor landed a left hook just 13 seconds into the first round, and Aldo was out cold. It was like something out of a movie. Aldo was one of the best ever, but McGregor made him look like he didn't even belong in the ring. That knockout made Conor McGregor a star. And that's a wrap, folks. We've taken a look at some of the most unforgettable knockouts in UFC history. If you're a fan of the sport, you know that these knockouts are what make the UFC so exciting. They're the moments that we'll always remember, the moments that we'll talk about with our friends for years to come. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more UFC content. Until the next time, keep on fighting.